But you made a suggestion during there that if you were a white South African, you should consider leaving. Do you still hold that view?
Yeah, absolutely. And in South Africa, we're just clueless. People have no idea. With the worst education in the world, massive amounts spent, worst results. We have racist laws, socialist laws, anti-Semitic, anti-American, anti-West. I mean, why be here other than on holiday or other than living in a bubble? Look, if you've got money in South Africa and you're not leaving, you've got to put...
Guys, so this is a really important video for young South Africans, white South Africans, especially the young, but all South Africans generally, especially the young, and parents in South Africa. Because, you know, there's been this debate among many people about whether to leave South Africa or not. Is there any need to stay in South Africa or not? To the point where we had these Afrikaners deciding that, man, I can't do this anymore. I'm having to leave. And, you know, two moments on this channel, ever since I started running this channel, that actually got me aback were two times. One was when a young, I would argue that was a white South African, during the time when I was analyzing the whole thing with the Afrikaner exodus and all of that. She came to write to me in the comment and asked that, Kwazemi, what do you think is the best thing for us to do? Do you think it is wise to leave this country and all that? Bro, that question really got to me, like, really deeply. I mean, like, I'm just a simple YouTuber, and, you know, someone out there, young South African, just lost watching the whole analysis of reality, especially as we break them down here on Kwazemi, getting to the point where there was really no one else to ask but to come to a YouTuber and ask, you know, because I think she argued that she was a daughter of a single mom, and, you know, I think she has watched her mom struggle all this time in South Africa, and coming now to this you know, period in South Africa's history, looking at her own future, she just really was really confused as to what can be done, what could she do to really guarantee her a bright future. The second time was when, in the comments as well, there was a comment from this lady, and I think I had this during my interview with Hersov, when the lady wrote in the comments arguing that, you know, she's understanding her own country by being on Kwazemi. That was a really deep moment. So these are two deep moments for me regarding this thing of, you know, what's the way forward for South Africa? Should I stay? Should I go? Should I leave? Should I look for a future somewhere else? And all of that. Many people are confused. Young, white, black, Indian, colored South Africans, really confused. And so I was just, you know, going through the internet, and I stumbled on this video, this interview between Rob Hersov and this guy from Morning Shot. I usually like to watch his videos quite a lot. And this interview really struck me, where Rob Hersov was actually, you know, Rob Hersov has actually been on a, not like a tour, but he has been really moving around, giving talks on podcasts regarding the whole debate around Afrikaner, genocide, refugee, and all of that. And I think on this one particular podcast he had with the Colonel now, Chris Wyatt, he I think I'll be playing the video soon anyway, but I think he was reiterating this whole thing about, you know, what's the point in staying in a South Africa where there are these race laws hindering your progress. There are these socialist, he argues, this is Rob Hersov now arguing that, you know, South Africa has this, as you heard in the video, race laws, socialist laws, what kind of laws. And he just isn't able to see the light in South Africa from his own perspective. And so he was from the perspective that, you know, as a white South African, he's really not able to see what it is that white South Africans are doing in South Africa. But Dawie Roodt, I really love listening to him. Economist Dawie Roodt from the Efficient Group is actually of another perspective. Dawie Roodt thinks that, you know, there are many, especially as an economist, he's seen South Africa from the perspective of the economist, and actually seen young South Africans performing really well, despite the fact that the society in South Africa, especially the government, might have laws that limit one's prowess. But Dawie Roodt has some really important points why he thinks that, you know, young people do not need to leave South Africa, that you can still thrive in South Africa. And then he gives those tips, and those tips are what I want to analyze in this video, which is why I say it's very important to give wisdom and insight to young people who are really confused or who might be thinking that, they are lost in their world and they really don't know what to do, whether to leave South Africa or not. This is a really important video. I advise to watch to the end. But first, let's listen to Rob Hersov on his argument on why he feels that it's useless for a white South African today, or a young South African in general, to still be in South Africa with all the laws and all the whole policies that are actually being put by the government to really limit people. And I'll be back for Dawie Roodt's counteraction. How he counteracts that notion by Rob Hersov in arguing that South Africa doesn't have to be a place that hinders people, but that as an economist, he sees a lot of things young people can do, and we'll be analyzing that quickly. So let's just listen to Rob Hersov and I'll be back.
Okay, so then let's play this as a logical thing. So I watched you in a podcast with Chris Wyatt, and during that podcast you made a suggestion. Maybe it was just how you were feeling at the time. Obviously you were traveling a lot and you were very tired, but you made a suggestion during there that if you were a white South African, you should consider leaving. Do you still hold that view?
Yeah, absolutely.
Expand that. What's your view on that?
I look at America. I look at South Africa. What is, other than loving this country and, Bryflace and Chevrolet and sunny skies and Chevrolet, whatever that ad was, there's actually no economic reason to be in this country. In fact, it's negative. South African economy is the same size as Louisiana. So if you're a big shot in South African business, you're a big shot in Louisiana. But in America, Americans work harder than anyone else. On the productivity index, they're right at the top. The country is booming. I mean, yesterday alone, this Gerrit Steenkamp, who my buddy from Lioncate, is an absolute whiz on AI, okay? And I said, Gerrit, I really have to become an expert on AI. I'm missing a trick here. I'm sending you stuff. I'm lazy, and you just sort it out for me. I need a week's tutorial on AI. And he said, you don't need it. I said, why not? He said, download GenStack or Manus, M-A-N-U-S. They're the AIs of all the other AIs. So they AI, all the other stuff everyone else is doing. You want to do video, you can do video through Manus. If you want to launch a new business, if you've got a business idea, you can do the business plan, the website, the coding, the business plan, the market entry plan in 5 minutes. I tried it last night. It blew my mind. And everyone in America, you could launch a business a day, okay? Just go to GenStack or Manus. It's mind-boggling. I'm going to be spending the whole next part of my life launching a business a day through these AI. It is extraordinary. And in South Africa, you're just clueless. People have no idea. With the worst education in the world, massive amounts spent, worst results. We have racist laws, socialist laws, anti-Semitic, anti-American, anti-West. I mean, why be here other than on holiday or other than living in a bubble in the Cape, operating businesses internationally? That's probably the right way around. But for young people, they'd be completely and utterly mad to stay here for patriotic reasons. I'm a 3 out of 10 on South Africa for the next 4 years. I mean, I think it's uninvestable, unplayable. Look, if you've got money in South Africa and you're not leaving, you've got to put your money.
Yeah, so you heard it from Rob Hersov, guys. So in order to counter all of these points that Rob Hersov has, Dawie Roodt from the Efficient Group actually doesn't think that it's wise for people to leave South Africa. I mean, it's possible if you want to leave South Africa, sure, but Dawie Roodt is an economist, right? And when these economists speak, maybe you just want to listen to, because they have these numbers and the economic performance and the trends, global trends going on, so you want to listen. Dawie Roodt, in an article on the Daily Investor, has this title, says Dawie Roodt's advice for people who want to leave South Africa. He argues that it does not make sense for young people to leave South Africa, as they can still be part of a modern economy in the country. So this was his point when he had a discussion on Newsflash with Joe Emilio. All right, I think I'll be playing that podcast next after this video, but I just wanted to analyze the whole point. The article here says that the discussion focused on South Africa's poor economic growth over the past 16 years and the government's continued mismanagement of the economy. The result is that people are getting poorer, employment opportunities are declining, and taxes are at record highs. This is exactly what Rob Hersov is seeing. The article says that this situation has actually led to a high number of skilled South Africans leaving the country in search of better opportunities, a safer place to live, and greater stability. The article argues that the latest migrant data from the United Nations shows that approximately 108,000 South Africans emigrated from South Africa between 2020 and 2024, averaging 27,000 per year. All right. Now, although understandably many people prefer to leave South Africa due to the deteriorating circumstances, the country still offers opportunities to those who would like to stay. And this is where I come in, because in this argument, despite the declining fall and the whole thing challenges in South Africa, there are still some opportunities for those who decide to stay. And I think that's what we should be capitalizing on, all right? So Dawie Roodt argues that the modern economy, right, has evolved to allow people to work remotely, provided that they possess the necessary skills, a solid grasp of technology, and quality internet connection. So according to Dawie Roodt, there's a modern economy that is actually operating above the South African economy, and that you can tap into that economy as long as you have the necessary skills, a grasp of technology, and quality internet connection. Dawie argues that South Africans could therefore form a part of the global service industry, irrespective of their location. He says that economies are becoming more cloud-based. This in turn means that politicians are losing more power over to the people. And I see this a lot in the whole movement with digital nomads now coming to Africa a lot. Nairobi, Cape Town, Addis Ababa. There's an economy that seems to be transferring power to the people. And according to Dawie Roodt, he argues that, the politicians are losing more power over to the people because of this modern economy that is cloud-based. And you can tap into that economy based if you have the necessary skills and the internet connection. So as a youngster in South Africa, for example, you could make a really interesting living in that really sweet, beautiful, sunny country without moving to, the likes of Northern Europe or these really cold places. But you just have to have the insight, the foresight, necessary skills, and an internet connection. This is according to Dawie Roodt. Dawie Roodt argues that we have the opportunity to be free of the heavy hand of the bureaucrats and inept politicians because of the nature of the modern economy. Dawie also argues that another positive thing about South Africans is that they are good at organizing themselves and at doing things for themselves. Roodt advised people to get involved in their local community organizations, civil action groups, and even political parties. He says, know who your neighbors are. Form part of the neighborhood watch or similar groups. Join in and make your society healthy. All right? So this is according to Dawie Roodt. The article goes on to say that Dawie Roodt actually previously said that for those staying in South Africa, it's essential for them to protect their wealth by ensuring that their investments are properly diversified. He also argued that despite the country's economic challenges, it has liquid and well-regulated financial markets, which few other countries have. And then he urged South Africans to use this to their advantage by leveraging the financial system to take their money offshore. Dawie then says that the obvious thing is to make sure that you are diversified properly to minimize risk and exposure to a single asset class or a particular country. Now, he says that the main thing is to make sure that you have a significant part of your portfolio invested abroad to protect against a weakening currency. So in other words, you can have investments diversified abroad, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to move abroad. So this is according to Dawie, all right? So these things take knowledge and insight on how to really carry on. And I think this is where he, in a way, aligns with what Rob Hersov has actually been saying. So, but anyway, I think this is one perspective that I think this whole thing about leaving or not, for those who choose to stay, I think this is one perspective we could actually pick from Dawie Roodt, in the sense that he argues about this modern economy. And for me personally, I also see this modern economy a lot of young, skilled Kenyans, the Gen Zs, for example, are actually living this because they're able to provide services to people outside of Kenyan economy and make a living, a really excellent living in Kenya, pay taxes, become normal, good citizens, but they do not have to really be pulled down by probably some of the inefficiencies of the economy. And I think this is what Dawie Roodt is actually arguing for, that, young South Africans now need to take the bull by the horn, learn the necessary skills to be able to tap into that modern economy, because he argues that modern economy seems to be operating in a cloud-based manner that takes more power away from the politicians and to the people. All right, so this is one perspective to really look at this debate that Rob Hersov is actually arguing for white South Africans to leave or not, or to stay, and how probably some of you South Africans who decide to stay in South Africa, amidst all these whole challenges the country is facing, can actually tap into this modern economy and carry on. It demands an education anyway, new kind of education, new sets of skills, a willingness to learn, and an internet connection. So this, I think, is one perspective to the ray of hope that Dawie Roodt is actually still bringing to the fore regarding whether people should leave South Africa or not. But I don't know. What do you guys think about this? Let's have a debate. Share your thoughts in the comments.